Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of... Ni episod apa Weh Arif, ni episod apa?
Ni Oxford interview.
Ni interview lah.
Interview lah. Podcast lah.
PodcastLAH. Okay, welcome back kepada PodcastLAH. Hari ni kita ada satu interview yang best. I think it's good. Dia memang akan panjang sikit, and interview ni di-conducted dalam bahasa English. Kalau ada masa, kalau tengah kerja ke tak ada benda buat ke, kau buka, then kau pakai earphones, background kau dengar lah conversation. Sebab interview ni kita buat dengan founder of Oxford. Nama dia Gijs, and bukan yang yo what's up guys, dia Gijs, Gijs. Itu cara spelling dia. Dia orang Netherlands. So cara pronunciation dia Gijs. Kita akan interview dia sebab Oxford is a platform similar macam StockX, tapi diorang baru di-acquired oleh Carousell di Singapura. This is something very good because it's in our region. Kita akan interview dia, find out how the whole deal went down, get to know him better and what he thinks about the Malaysian market in general. Alright, jom, let's go. Alright, first things first. You know, it's customary for Asians to introduce themselves. I would think that you are an Asian by now, because how long you've been in Singapore?
Singapore just coming on to 2.5 years, but I've spent 2 years in Indonesia, 2 years in Myanmar, and half year in Bangladesh before that. So it's been a while.
Oh yeah, that's quite a while. Huh? You've been almost a decade.
6 years. Yeah,
okay.
No, 6 years. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, okay, mate. First things first. Just introduce yourself. You know, what's your name? What do you do?
Yeah. So my name, it looks a bit strange, but the best pronunciation is Gijs. I'm Dutch. I grew up in the Netherlands, and I got hooked on sneakers when I was a kid, and I saw Air Max 1 on my classmates' feet. I think it was just, you know, the visible Air. It was just something so different. And in Holland, you know, it's all about Air Max, especially back then, with rave culture and stuff. So I had to have those shoes, but my mom said they were too expensive. So a bit of a bummer. I got some random Reeboks instead, I think. But it set me on this path of that you all know all too well, of buying way too many shoes. And I've always had, like, you know, this issue of accumulating footwear wherever I go. But I actually didn't start my career in fashion or anything at all. I got started in banking, finance, and did a couple of years of private equity in Europe. But after a few years of that, I wanted to go in an adventure and broaden my horizons and work in startups, you know, and do something, build something, and instead of just looking from the sidelines. Yep. So I joined this German company called Rocket Internet, and some of the companies that they have backed include Lazada, Zalora, Easy Taxi back in the day, and more than 100 companies in I think more than 100 countries. And they sent me to Bangladesh. So that's how I first ended up in Asia and started down this path.
Okay, so for all like Myanmar and Jakarta, all that was also part of the startup life, or?
Yeah, so I was running consumer marketplaces, mainly in jobs and a little bit e-commerce as well. And during that time, I had a couple of aha moments, and one of them was that, you know, Gen Z, all the young people in Southeast Asia, they are the same as I was when I was a kid, right? It's about self-expression, and you need to sort of rebel a little bit against your parents, but you know, most people don't want to go like all the way rebel, and sneakers and fashion is just a way to create a new identity for yourself. I think that really resonated with me. And I saw that everyone I found everywhere was the same and was striving for this, you know, express their sense of style. So yeah. I thought, you know, there's really something here in sneaker culture that is thriving and bubbling, and it's gonna really grow. And I wanted to do something with that. So the first idea I had was more of like, let's say, a hype beast for some of the local markets.
Yep.
But I quickly figured out that, you know, the media play or just content was not really big enough for what I wanted to do, and also I didn't really have a lot to add because it's going to be content. So what can I as a European add? I can't even read the language. So I figured, you know, we have to. That's not the plan. And around that time, I started to look at buying. Of course, I was still buying sneakers, and I figured there are other things we can do there.
Okay, so you said you were buying sneakers all this while. So when you were moving from country to country, like how did you bring your shoes around? Like,
so I kept it really, really minimal through that time. But I actually only moved twice. I moved from Bangladesh to Myanmar, and then from Myanmar to Indonesia, and then from there to Singapore. But at that time when I moved to Singapore, my collection was almost completely down to zero because I had spent some time on Bali, and you don't need sneakers on Bali.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, how did you finally end up in Singapore, and why Singapore?
Well, I mean, during my time at Rocket, we had like let's say the corporate headquarters in Singapore. So I was familiar with how to set up a bank account. I had done sort of those corporate steps before in Singapore. And I knew it was really easy. And we also knew we were going to ship sneakers around. And Singapore has quite a high tax threshold. And it's quite easy in that sense. So it felt like the right place to set up our headquarters.
All right, so you're in Singapore, and rumor has it you were trying to buy some sneakers on Carousell, right? And then you almost bought a fake pair of sneakers from Carousell. So can you tell me, like, how did that lead to opening Ox Street?
Yeah. So I was trying to buy the Jordan 1 Turbo Greens back then, and I went onto Carousell and I arranged with this reseller to meet up in an MRT station. And first of all, I had to wait for 30 minutes because this guy was way late. And then when he showed up, he was like, yeah, I was late because the previous buyer didn't show up and wanted to change the size. I was like, oh man, okay, I get it. You know, for sellers, it's also quite annoying. And then I got the shoes and I LC'd them the best I could, and I took them home. And then, of course, as everyone does, I started watching more YouTube videos, you know, to just try and confirm. And there was something about the foam layer that was a little bit weird. So I was like, oh no, you know, and I had to go really deep and figure out whether, and luckily they were actually in one reel, but it was such a harrowing and annoying experience. And by that time I had heard about, you know, of course, StockX as well and Goat. And I was like, there's really not a good local solution to this issue. So why don't we build one? And that's when sort of the ball started rolling. And I raised some money from angel investors, started getting a team together, and we launched towards the end of 2019, November 2019.
Okay, so it's been running for, you know, close to 2 years now. Yeah. What's the main goal here? Like, where do you see Ox Street going?
Well, it was always about that first spark related to Gen Z, right? And really not having a good platform for them and also for myself, right? I'm also solving my own problem where I don't really know where to shop online. You know, you can buy socks or underwear on Zalora, but it's really just about all it does. Yeah. And with some of the international platforms, it's also not a good experience. So what I fundamentally want to build is a place to hang out, to buy and sell, where everything is as seamless as just using the best e-commerce platform in the world, and a place that's also fun to use when you're broke, and it's more fun together with your friends. So making Ox Street ultimately multiplayer is also something that is part of our mission.
Yeah, I mean, this is off the books. I mean, it's not written in here, but you mentioned something which is very interesting. I feel like at that time when you launched Ox Street, I'm pretty sure there was not many players in the region, and it's really expensive to ship something from, you know, StockX or Goat or something like that, all the way from, you know, the States or Canada or Europe, and it's super expensive. And I guess you saw that there was a niche, there was an opening, a market here, and you took it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think you raise an interesting point, because back then there was really no option, but I think StockX and Goat, they have moved just a little bit quicker than I would have hoped, but still, so it's still sort of like an arms race to really create more and more local edges, right, and local features. But we feel that it's not the first time American companies try to come and conquer Asia in a way, right? And we feel that a lot of times they haven't really succeeded. And so if we can continue to layer on all these local touches, like for example, for Malaysia and Indonesia, we're looking at creating like a label for pigskin containing shoes, because that's something that really matters to a lot of people. We had to get the question a lot about New Balance, you know, does this shoe contain pigskin?
Yep.
And local payment methods, faster payouts, different shipping providers that are faster and cheaper, you know, maybe different product catalogs. It's not like a one magic bullet thing that will allow us to win, but it's more just continuously focusing on our markets that will give us that edge.
Yeah. So in regards to that, you guys work with multiple shipping partners?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, our main bread and butter one is DHL, because it's just the best.
Yeah.
But we do have different ones locally. So GDEX in Malaysia we use quite a bit. We use in Singapore, we use someone that's called Urban Fox, which is very good for our center to buyers within Singapore. So we're always on the lookout for different ones. Aramex is coming up a little bit as a good option for seller side logistics. So this is something very operational, but we're always optimizing.
Yeah, dope. Okay, so coming back to the company, you know, like why Singapore as a HQ? You know, there's Malaysia, you know, labor is cheap here, rental is cheaper, and you know, Vietnam is also another great hub. So why Singapore?
Yeah, so there was a couple of reasons for that. I think one was just familiarity. So I have done relatively not as much business in Malaysia compared to Singapore, so I already knew it, and I already knew like some providers to set up businesses and stuff like that, and bank accounts. But another key one was the import and export tax system. So in Singapore the threshold is pretty high, so it's relatively easy to ship products in, whereas for example Vietnam, that's quite a big issue for our buyers, like 30+% or so tax. So if we were to put our headquarters there, we would face that on pretty much every order, even before we can authenticate it. So that was not really going to be an option. And I think Malaysia could have been a good option, but there it's more of sort of the familiarity. And we felt from Singapore we have a good headquarter that can sort of cater to all the markets that we want to go to.
Yeah, so like it's been around. You've been around for 2 years, and then I'm pretty sure starting it up in the beginning is not a walk in the park. You know, like what was the challenges you guys faced starting out in 2019? You know, especially not knowing what's around the corner, which is COVID. You know, like what were the challenges you guys faced back then?
I would say the first one was that we had been looking at Carousell and trying to estimate how many sneakers get sold there, and it seemed to be quite a lot. And so we expected there to be...
How do you estimate? Like you're going through all the listings yourself?
Yeah, going through all the listings, trying to figure out the listing date, and sort of trying to figure out how many listings per week like move through.
Okay.
And it seemed to be quite a lot. And so we thought there would be a local market. But it turns out that the market is very price driven. So we would try to we have to take a commission to pay for the authentication service, for example, right? And there simply weren't a lot of people who wanted to sell through Ox Street from East Singapore to West Singapore, right? There's no price difference. So that was the first moment where we're like, okay, this is going to be a little bit more tricky than we thought. So that's when we started expanding to Malaysia, Philippines, started looking at Indonesia. We realized we had to regionalize a lot more quickly than we initially thought. And the challenge with that is that you start spreading your marketing dollars really thin, right? So that was the first real challenge. And then, as you said, COVID hit. I think for us, COVID hit at kind of like a tricky time, in that we were just fundraising, and the capital markets went almost completely closed for like 2 months or so. But in the end, we still managed to raise new funding, and part of the reason why was we actually saw a big increase. So in Singapore, suddenly there was a local market because people couldn't meet up. So the whole Carousell thing sort of fell through, and people started coming to Oxstreet because we had that end-to-end solution, right? And that gave us a big boost. And in other markets as well, in Malaysia, during some of the tightest lockdown measures, we saw big boosts in orders. I think last year around Hari Raya was a very good, that was maybe like our breakthrough in Malaysia when we had for the first time a lot of traction. So it's been generally positive for our business, I would say.
Don't mind me asking, like, how many % increase you saw when COVID hit? You say it was a big boost. Double.
We doubled.
Wow.
Yeah. April 2020 doubled from March 2020.
Okay. How about, what's the breakdown of countries? Like, where's the majority of Oxstreet coming from? Like the transactions?
It's currently about 40% Singapore, about 30% Malaysia. Philippines is also quite a lot. 15 to 20%, and the rest is a long tail. Every market you can imagine in the region, we have some buyers. Australia, Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Vietnam, even Myanmar.
Wow.
Brunei, weirdly in Brunei. So I'm 100% sure we are the #1 sneaker marketplace in Brunei because there's only less than 1 million people, and we have actually quite a lot of orders from there. So that's an interesting random one where the community sort of found out and they all told each other, and but I mean that's just a funny side story. But
nice.
Yeah, this is sort of like the breakdown.
Nice. I mean, did you expect it to be like this? Like, you know, your goal was Singapore, right? Like, but did you expect it to be such a vast acceptance of the app and the marketplace?
Our goal was Asia from the start. But we thought we would be able to do a little bit more of a outward expansion model, and that's what I said. Where we realized the price differences were not there. That we had to sort of take a much broader view earlier.
All right, so you've mentioned Carousell a few times in this interview, and we all do read the news. At least I do. You know, I think I'm at that age. You know, I have to read the news. And recently, there's been an announcement. Carousell has, who is actually worth $1.1 billion US. They have acquired Oxstreet. So, can you tell me how did that happen? Like, did you guys meet at a bar and like, hey, bro, buy me, or like, what happened? You know?
Yeah. So we actually go quite a while back. I had worked with some of the Carousell folks and some of the people that are sort of in the Carousell sphere before as a freelancer, and it's a small tech scene, right, in Asia, so everyone a lot of people know each other. But it actually started over a year ago, when we started talking with Carousell about us maybe providing authentication services to them, because they knew, of course, that there's an issue with fakes on the platform, and the fear of buying a defect or fake product is the #1 thing stopping people from buying secondhand.
Yes.
So Carousell knew all this, and they wanted to try and see if they could solve that problem. And the thought was that on Carousell you could kind of use Oxstreet as a service to get your products authenticated, similar to what then eBay actually did later in the US.
Yes.
So we were quite keen, and at that point we were like, yeah, sure, we can start tomorrow, right? Startup style. We can get a few interns and we just go for it. But Carousell was a little bit more slow on their side, and so it stalled for quite a while. And we also couldn't figure out how to price it, because what's the cost, and then do we charge Carousell? How are we gonna? It's just quite complicated, as it turned out. So we started talking again and again, and in the meantime built up quite a good relationship with their CEO and with some other people in sort of the luxury and sneaker departments of within Carousell. And around June or July, I was raising funds again for Oxstreet, and I spoke to Carousell and I said, hey guys, why don't you just participate in our funding round? Put in some money, and then you have skin in the game, and all of these problems are going to go away. And they were like,
Yep.
okay, that actually sounds pretty good. Let me think about that for a little bit. And that conversation ultimately went in a direction where we both realized that why don't we just completely team up, and Oxstreet becomes fully part of the Carousell group. And we continue operating as our own brand, our own team, keep the startup culture alive.
Yep.
And we can leverage on Carousell's size, and funding to grow Oxstreet faster, and also bring our capabilities back to Carousell. So you can expect us to still do that, get authenticated type of stuff.
They're not thinking to like absorb you guys into the, like come over to the big office, let's be neighbors and all that.
No. I mean, we have spoken about that, and I think in some countries we will. Like in Malaysia, for example, it's pretty likely that we'll try to use the Carousell office that's already there for the time that our team still fits. But in Singapore, we already have too big of a footprint to really fit. And also, it's such a different business, right? We are moving boxes around. We have a sort of a warehouse type vibe, so it's different from the office space. But those are things that Carousell might also want to take to other categories as well, right? It's a really big strategic priority for Carousell Group as a whole, which includes us, to bring more trust to the transactions and bring more of an e-commerce feel to the transactions. The game is called re-commerce, which is sort of like bringing an e-commerce kind of experience to secondhand.
Yep.
And a lot of our capabilities with end-to-end, with shipping, with payments, payouts, authenticity are gonna really come in handy to do that.
So you mentioned fake a few times, so I've got to ask, how many fakes do you guys get a month? And like how many fakes do you guys spot?
Not that many. So it starts
Interesting.
We work with sellers that we know at first. So for the first year and a half, we didn't encounter a single fake, because they were all sellers that everyone knows each other. Recently, it started to start actually. So in the last month and a half, I think we had 2 or 3 fake pairs. Two fake pairs, yeah. And one was a Jordan 1 Union. And it was pretty good replica. A lot of people here was like there was something off, but it was not that easy to pinpoint. And then what was the other one? A Yeezy? Oh yeah, of course, a pair of the Para Dunks, the abstract art. That was a bad fake. That was really an obvious one.
Man. So, but it's quite good that after 2 years of operation, you guys encounter like almost zero, right? Like 2 or 3 is actually really very, very few in comparison.
Bryan, I got to tell you, man, by far the bigger problem is quality control. So as we all know, right, Dunk Lows are $159 Sing shoe. They're super cheap shoe and made cheaply. But if they're reselling for hundreds or well in the thousands of ringgit, that becomes a different story, and people expect something else. So it's very hard to manage expectations for buyers in Dunks, for example, when there's like stuff that is just how it comes from the factory. Some buyers are looking for the perfect shoe, right? so this is a bigger challenge for us. At what point do we reject it? At what point do we just ship it? At what point do we go and ask the buyer for permission? That's a way bigger challenge.
So in that topic, like how many do you reject these shoes if they are too, the quality is too bad? Do you reject it even though it's original, or what do you guys do?
Yeah, we do reject shoes if they are, let's say, B grade products.
Yeah, in regards to this, right, I do reach out to a few people in certain brands, and they do tell me that this QC problem comes from having 2 or 3 different factories producing the same shoe. Yeah. And then when one guy uses a Vietnam-made shoe and he's like, okay, this is my reference point, and the other guy gets a Thailand-made or Indonesia or China-made pair, and then they're all sort of different, and it's like how do you compare? How do you check? Because the quality it's I wouldn't say great. Obviously, it's B grade, like you said, right? But it's all over the place, and different factories, right? So what actually do? You just tell the seller like, sorry man, I can't take this pair. You're gonna return it back to him, or?
Yeah, that's what we do. And actually, today we have a very interesting example of this. So we have a pair of Yeezy slides, and they retailed originally in Mexico. And at the bottom there's like a made in China stamp in Spanish. And the labeling on the box and everything is all different. So we are like 99.5% sure that it's legit, but we can't reach the 100 because no one's seen a Mexico pair before. So we're like, let's just be safe and not ship it to the buyer. So we're quite strict, and we encounter these kind of weird things.
I see. Oh, that's pretty interesting. It would be good to actually see an example off camera. I mean, if you want to show it to us, it's fine. We can insert some footages later.
Yeah, I can send you some pics.
Okay, let's Carousell. All right, just one more question about Carousell. When is the integration coming, or would there be any integration between you and Carousell? Like you mentioned, is that like coming soon, or a few more years time?
No, soon. So Carousell has just launched a few months ago instant buy for certain categories, where you can, as a buyer, you can just buy it straight away without negotiating. So we're gonna launch that for sneakers, and we will be the ones to run the inventory at first. So when we have that, which is going to be probably in January or latest February, if you're selling on Ox Street, that means you're automatically also selling on Carousell. If you are a big enough seller, because we have a certain SLA as well to meet. So we need to have sellers who are very professional, ship on time, that type of stuff. So it's going to be quite selective. But that I'm quite excited about that. It's just expanding the reach that sellers have. When you're selling on Ox Street, you're actually selling on two platforms. And then the second one that we want to build, that I'm super excited about, is, as I mentioned, right? The seller and the buyer can both be on Carousell, but Ox Street will be in the middle as the fulfillment system. So we add authenticity and fulfillment to the transaction.
Okay, that's good. Let's dive deep into the Malaysian market. Like, how do we fare? Like you mentioned, 30% of your sales are from Malaysia. But what do you think of Malaysia as a country, and how do we fare in the region?
No, yeah, I think it's super amazing market. Really welcoming people. We've had such good interactions with our customers from Malaysia, both buying and selling, right? And there's such a strong base level of culture already. With you, of course, and SneakerLAH, with all that you've done, it doesn't come out of nowhere. And that makes it for us so much more fun, because there's hip hop really starting to come up, right? A number of Malaysian hip hop artists really starting to make it internationally. Skateboarding culture is really big. So there are these common streetwear and sneaker hooks that are very established in Malaysia that make the market more easy to talk to, in a way, I guess. So very excited about what more we can do in Malaysia, expanding the local team. We have our second authentication center is in Malaysia already, so we authenticate locally. That means that if the seller and the buyer are in Malaysia, the product never has to leave Malaysia. So we hope to increase the share of the market that sort of works in that way, and really start working more and more towards Malaysia-specific campaigns, specific features, whatever is needed to serve the people in Malaysia better.
Are you guys planning to open any stores, like drop-off points, stores? Is retail really, like, what do you think about retail? Do you really think retail is the future again?
I mean, we talk about that so much, and we've never done it yet. And we've spoken with a lot of pop-up possibilities, and every time we decide against it so far. So I'm pretty sure we will do it eventually, but we have to have very strong conviction on what it's going to be like, because the tricky part is, what are we going to actually do and sell in a space, right? Ideally, we don't have inventory. The shoes are with our sellers. So if we're going to do a store, it's not going to be very nice if it's an empty store. So we're going to have to buy shoes first, right? Yep. Just to give you an idea. And then what about sizing? Sometimes the price per size can be wildly different. So
Yep.
how are we going to deal with that in the context of a retail store? So it's something where we're interested to think about, to experiment with it and see what an offline touch point will do. But hoping to pull it off in an experimental way, maybe partnering with an existing store to provide the more hard to get shoes. Yeah, there's all kinds of ideas floating around, but we haven't committed to it yet.
Okay. When do you plan, since you know you can fly into Malaysia, are you coming down to Malaysia anytime soon?
Yeah, man, it's at the top of my list. So I want to do a tour first to Malaysia to meet Hazik. I've never even met Hazik. Hazik is our man on the ground.
Okay.
I've never even met you, Bryan. I mean, I really have to come down. I think January is the plan.
All right, dope. Can't wait for that. And then so how many pairs of shoes do you have?
I don't know. I think it's not that many. I just don't really keep track. So I'm not a collector. I've never been a collector of anything. I always buy things on impulse, and then I wear them. And sometimes I wear them for a while and I get tired of them. Sometimes I rediscover something, like the Viotech Dunk Lows. I recently found them somewhere in my closet. I was like, oh yeah, these are sick. I should start wearing them again. So I'm not very structured about it. I think it's somewhere around 30 plus pairs right now, something around that.
Okay. Oh, that's not bad. 30 plus pairs. You are a sneakerhead.
Well, I try to be a bit more conscious. Like I bought a lot of Jordans that I sold again, like the Tokyo, the silver, the Coach Japan pair, for example. I wore it like 4 times and then realized I didn't really want a silver Jordan. So I'm trying to avoid those now, but I'm definitely gonna cop the A Ma Manière Jordan 1. The Jordan 3 is one of my top pairs of this year, and the Jordan 1, there's one in the office now, just behind me, and it's just total poison. It's just amazing.
Okay, so as you know, sad news for the streetwear world, sneaker world. Virgil passed away.
Yeah.
Being the founder of Ox Street, can you let us know whether there's a huge increase in people buying Off-Whites now?
Yeah, it was one of the worst days in Ox Street history, to be honest, because I'm a big Virgil Abloh fan. I think he's a genius in everything he's done. And I woke up that day and the first thing I saw was that we had almost $50,000 in volume overnight, which is not normally what happens between midnight and 7 a.m. And then I saw that Virgil Abloh had died, and at that moment I already knew what had happened. So the prices had skyrocketed, and everyone had started clearing the products on Ox Street. But the prices don't automatically adjust. So almost all of the sellers flaked and didn't ship the products. So we had to cancel almost all of those orders, because when you're a seller and you sell on Ox Street and you don't ship, you just ghost, you're charged a $24 Singapore dollar penalty fee. But the price of some Off-White products went up like over 100. So then the sellers rather take the fee instead and resell it again at a higher price. So yeah, it sucked. It's really bad. Like at that moment in time, when we are actually the most needed to set the price and provide like a liquid trading opportunity, it completely breaks down. And the same happened to us when Kobe died and when Jerry Lorenzo left Nike. These type of really out of the blue events, we're not equipped to deal with them properly, and it results in a lot of cancellations. So we're looking at maybe we can do like automatic price protection or automatic like pausing of listings if the price is too far below market price, stuff like that. Because every time we see a transaction happen, and it was in the beginning as well, that is just unrealistically low priced, we already know it's going to happen. Like the seller mispriced it or mistyped or anything weird, something weird happened. So yeah, it was not a good day for us. It was not a good day.
Yeah. Another thing I want to pick your brain, How old are you, by the way?
I just turned 36.
36. All right. So you grew up in you're 80s baby. You grew up in the 90s, and sneaker culture is like, kind of growing streetwear, and you've seen it all from like, dial-up internet to like internet now and the birth of social media. So you kind of like seen many cycles, right? And there was a point in streetwear and sneakers that people were going into it to be different.
Yeah.
But right now, it seems that a lot of people are going into sneakers and streetwear to fit in.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, everyone wants to cop that particular hype pair. When you go to an event, everyone's wearing that same hype pair. What do you think about that, being someone of like, that age, and you've seen many cycles? What do you think about this emergence of streetwear to become the norm?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, for me personally, it was always about being different in a group, but the group was relatively small. So, when I was growing up, it was still kind of niche to be into hip-hop and to be into skateboarding and be into sneakers. But there were still other people, and it was a bond that you had, right? That cut across schools and cut across cities in the Netherlands where I grew up. You looked at the same magazines, listened to the same type of music. But it was still about fitting in, at least to me it was, right? I was not actively trying to then be different again from that group, you know what I mean? It was definitely a shared aesthetic among people that appreciated that aesthetic. And I think that entire aesthetic has just gone completely mainstream, right? Something like 80 or 90% of the popular music has an R&B and hip hop influence at least. So I like it. I think it's just how the world moves, and the whole game has transitioned from being about access and knowing people or having the money to fly to Japan or New York to buy products, or having a brother or a cousin that flies in from New York or Japan, to now curation, because there's so much out there. If you look at just music, the volume of music that's being released is just impossible to keep track. There's no more single source like you had MTV, or a single forum where you would go to understand what is current and what is cool. So for a platform like Oxstreet, it creates a massive opportunity to become a new, I hate to say the word authority, but to become a new headquarters for this type of culture, right? And it's actually an evolution that we went through with Oxstreet, where when we started, I thought, as a foreigner, I don't want to try and educate the market about anything, right? I more want to see what's happening in the market. So we wanted to build a platform that's just there as an infrastructure. But we realized that that's not enough, and there's actually a lot of demand for some sort of curation, or a platform that takes some sort of view on what is going on and what it means. I take again Off-White as an example, right? You have to look into Off-White for a bit to understand how it goes back to like contemporary art and pop art, all the way back to Duchamp, who Virgil Abloh has mentioned. Duchamp is my lawyer. It is one of my favorite Virgil Abloh quotes, right? It's really rooted in contemporary art, and not a lot of people know that. And with Oxstreet, we try more and more to bring those stories to the products and to explain what's the background here and why, because it's all one big chain, right? Why would you even care about this product other than the price, right? It's not. We try to explain to people. We try to poison them with the culture, while they maybe come for the money, right? That's sort of creating more sneakerheads within the new generation is one of our missions.
Okay, so I think you touched a little bit about it in your answer just now, but what do you think is, the trend coming next? Like, I mean, you look at sneakers every day, you deal with sneakers. What do you think is the sneaker trend of 2022 and moving forward?
Interesting question. So you just had the G-Dragon, the Quando 1 come out, right?
Yeah.
And that's an aesthetic that you've seen a lot on the runways in the last year and a half, right? A more dressed up aesthetic. I think the fashion industry is really trying to push that back to work, sort of post-COVID.
Yep.
More dressed up appearance.
Mm-hmm.
But I honestly have my doubts whether that's really going to get picked up by the consumers, because in the end we're still spending a lot of time at home in our sweatpants, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be with us for a little while. But I also have to say, I'm not like the #1 trend spotter in fashion. What I think is going to be the trend, and this is more sort of like, I always say I'm a marketplaces nerd first and a sneaker nerd second, right? So I'm in the end I'm a techie, and I think what I really believe in is that some of these niches, and definitely sneakers is one of those in streetwear, are no longer a niche because the internet has gotten big enough, they have become mainstream enough that we can build a champion, a super app for that category, where everyone comes and hangs out and not just buys, sells, but also discover and relate to each other. So basically recreate that schoolyard or that whole community around it in a new way.
All right, last question, last one, and then we'll wrap up. What is your sneaker of the year this year?
The Off-White Jordan 2.
Wow, which one? The black or the white one?
The white. There's no doubt about it. I happened to buy it almost straight away. The moment I saw it, I already knew I was gonna buy it. The same happened to me with the Ama Manière Jordan 3, which is my second pick. But I love the fact that I did not know much about the Jordan 2, if anything at all. It's such an obscure model. And the way that it has now been brought back to relevance, I learned a lot about the model. It's the first type of kind of luxury sneaker, right? Jordan brand really tried to follow into Gucci's sort of direction with it, which kind of flopped. But it's a damn nice silhouette, and it's very contemporary in the way it looks even now. And then the whole part where Michael Jordan's signature is on it as sort of like a reference to how he used to sign shoes after he wore them. I think the storytelling is so deep. The whole idea of making the midsole look crumbled is just amazing. Yeah. So yeah, I got the pair, I wore it, and then Virgil passed away. So now it's even more special as his last hooray, you know. So yeah, easy one. What's your sneaker of the year actually?
Crocs Salehi.
Nice one. That's also
yeah. It's not out yet. But it's gonna be out on my birthday, which is next week.
Oh, congrats!
December 14. So yeah. I really want to get one pair, and I hope to get one. But I just feel like it's crazy that this guy took a normal looking Crocs clog and he turned it into such a good looking pair of shoe. A lot of thought, and it's a whole different new mold and silhouette. So I really respect him for that, and the vision he had is crazy. Yeah. So that's my pick.
He is really, speaking of trends, that man is coming, man. Like I got the New Balance, the Yurt.
Yeah. Did you try the whistle?
Love that silhouette as well. Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, love it. I love it. So good, awesome. Yeah, that's one of those stories of a totally new, innovative force in sneakers.
Yeah, how can you say you're not a sneakerhead, bro? Like almost every sneaker I brought up, you've copped it.
I never said I'm not a sneakerhead.
Okay.
I'm not a collector because I wear everything and then I just lose them sometimes in the bottom of my closet. I'm not very organized with it.
Same. I wear all of them, and you should wear your shoes because they're gonna crumble anyway. So you better wear them. Thank you so much for today. And it's been nice hanging out with you. Wish you all the best. Can't wait to see you in KL next month. Yeah, man. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot for having me. It was a pleasure. And take care, man. See you soon.
See you soon.